Masechet Nedarim Daf Lamed Dalid. The Mishnah mentioned the case where one person vows against another. The simple reading seems to me mean that the finder in this case makes a vow that he will not give any benefit to an owner, and this guy finder then finds an item that the owner of the item lost, and the Mishnah says yes, he is allowed to return it to him. Simple reading is because he's only returning something that the owner already owns, and the finder is simply doing a mitzvah to return the lost item, but not actually giving him any benefit, anything new that he didn't own before. Okay, but the Gemara is going to question this reading and wonder which way is the vow going in this case. If we assume it's the same as the other cases in the same Mishnah, if I pay machasita shekel for you, or if I pay a loan to a third party, I pay the lender on your behalf. It's obvious in those cases that's talking about a case where I am not allowed to give you benefit. Even so, I can do these things for you. So then it would sound like it would be the same thing, that the finder cannot give benefit to the owner, and yet he's allowed to return it. But maybe this clause is in fact in a different direction, the vow is in a different direction, and so we're going to have two versions of a machloket between Rabbi Ameh and Rabbi Aseh. So here we go. Machazir lo et avedato. Piligi ba Rabbi Ameh Rabbi Aseh. Chad amad. We don't know which of these Amorim said one or the other, but one of them is going to say that it only applies in one direction, and the other is going to say it applies when even if a vow is in either or both directions. Okay, so according to one of these Amoraim, lo shanu ela b'shenichse machazir asurin al bal aveda dechi mehadar le mida'am denafsheh ka mehadar le. I made a little chart just so that it'll be easier to keep track of these. In version 1, if it's a case where the finder may not give benefit to the owner, well then it's permitted anyway. Even though the finder cannot give benefit, he can still return it because this item already belongs to the owner. Right, so that's the case of the Mishnah where it says it's permitted. But aval nichse ba'al aveda asurin al machzir la kamehader le te kamehane le peruta de Rav Yosef. But if it's the other way around, as follows: if the owner may not give benefit to the finder, well, in that case, the finder can obviously return it because the finder can give benefit to the owner. The problem is in this case is that what something Rav Yosef said. Rav Yosef applied the rule that ha'osek b'mitzvah patur min ha'mitzvah. If I'm involved in one mitzvah, then I have no obligation regarding another mitzvah. So if I find something and I'm on my way and I'm returning the item to its owner, and a poor person happens to be there in the middle of the road, I do not have to give a peruta, a penny, to that poor person because I'm involved. I have to get this item back to the owner, and so therefore I'm actually saving a peruta that I don't have to give. So in this case, the finder is actually getting a benefit by doing this mitzvah. And because in this case the owner may not give any benefit to the finder, and the finder is now getting benefit by through the act of returning this to the owner, the finder is actually prohibited in all cases from returning an item if the owner is not allowed to give benefit to the finder. And so, according to this version, the Mishnah is only talking about A, and that's permitted, and B is prohibited. That is that's the opinion of one of these Tanaim, one of these Amarim. Okay, but the other, V'chad Amar, afilu nichse bal aveda asurin al machazir mehader le mishum peruta de Rav Yosef la shechiach. But according to the other opinion, both ways, whether the vow is again this way or that way, whether the owner is prohibited to the finder or the finder is prohibited to the owner, or both, it doesn't matter. The finder can still return it. And what about that peruta de Rav Yosef? That doesn't happen so often. Exactly on the way, while I'm returning the item, there's going to be a poor person, and then I won't give him a peruta because I don't have to when I save a peruta. Since that doesn't happen often, we don't have to worry about that benefit. And therefore, simply returning something that's already yours, and so you're not getting any benefit, and I, the finder, am not getting any benefit, so it works both ways. All right, now that we have machloket, we're going to try to challenge the first opinion up here from the last clause in the Mishnah. Our Mishnah said, Tenan, makom shenotlin aleha sachar tipol hana'ah lehekdesh. In a place where the custom is that the owner should compensate the finder for his time and his trouble, then he cannot give the money to the finder, but rather he has to donate the money to Hekdesh. Now, who can explain this line better? According to the second opinion that we just said, that it goes both ways, whether the vow is this way or that way or both ways, nevertheless, he can return the item. That explains well why in a place where they do compensate, you're not allowed to receive the compensation, the finder cannot receive it, and the owner cannot keep it. Why? Well, the finder cannot receive it because the finder, let's say, talking about where they both made a vow against each other. Or one of them, I said, I'm not allowed to give to you and I won't receive from you. And so, in that case, the finder cannot receive the compensation because he's prohibited from receiving any benefit. And so he says, no, I'm not going to take it, you keep it. On the other hand, the owner cannot keep it because then the owner is deriving benefit of having that money that really he owes, but now the finder isn't taking it. But the owner can't keep it either because he's not allowed to benefit from something having been returned to him and he's not compensating. Therefore, the owner has to take the money and give it to Hekdesh. So, according to the second version, the second opinion that we just quoted, everything makes sense. But according to this opinion that says permitted in one case and prohibited in the other case, well, this Mishnah therefore is not talking about case B because that is prohibited. Rather, the Mishnah is talking about case A, where the finder may not give benefit to the owner. Well, I understand. If the finder cannot give benefit to the owner, that means the finder can receive benefit from the owner, in which case the owner can simply give the compensation money to the finder, and the finder is allowed to keep it. So why would he have to make it Hekdesh? So the first opinion that says permitted and prohibited, the Mishnah is not allowing case B at all, and case A, there's no reason why he would have to give it Hekdesh. So he cannot explain this Mishnah very well. So what is he going to do? And so we actually have an answer. It could be that it's referring to just one of these cases, case A. Now, the Gemara does not explain how it could refer to that, but you need the commentaries for this. It would be a case where the finder returns the item to the owner. That's permitted because it already belongs to the owner. The owner offers to compensate the finder, and the finder could keep it if he wants. But we're talking about a case where the finder refuses. He says, no, I don't want anything. All right, a lot of times people like to do a favor. They don't want to get paid. They want to just do it for the mitzvah. So the finder says, I refuse it. I don't want it. You keep the money. That's the case that we're talking about. The owner cannot keep the money because in that case, the owner is deriving benefit from the finder. But we're talking about a case where the owner is prohibited from deriving benefit from the finder. Therefore, the finder refused it. The owner cannot keep it. That's what it's talking about, that the owner has to give it away to Hekdesh. And so this is not a challenge to this opinion that says permitted and prohibited in cases A and B respectively. He can explain the Mishnah. The other opinion that says both are permitted also can explain the Mishnah. And so both are possible readings. Okay, all that is version 1. But we have another version of this very same machloket between these two Amoraim, and now we're going to switch it around. A is going to be B, and B is going to be A. And so in this version, the first opinion, whichever is either Rabbi Ameh or Rabbi Aseh, he's going to say that in the first case it's permitted, and in the other case it's prohibited, and that's going to require some other explanations. Okay. Ika dematni la behaili shana. So others teach this question and answer we just had in the following version. Piligi ba Rabbi Ameh v'Rabbi Aseh. Yes, there's still machloket between these two Amoraim. Chad amar, lo shanu ela b'shenichse ba'al aveda asurin al machzir, umishum perutad Rav Yosef la shechiach. In this version, if it's a case where the owner is not allowed to give benefit to the finder, right? He says, he makes a vow, I'm not going to give you benefit. Well, in that case, the finder can return the item to the owner, right? The owner cannot give benefit to the finder. That's true, but the finder can give benefit to the owner, so he's returning the item, so that's fine. And what about the fact that the finder might have some benefit that he doesn't have to give a pirutah to the poor person, and isn't that a benefit to the finder? No, that's not common, and so we don't worry about that. All right, so that in that direction it is permitted. But אבל נכסי מחזיר אסורין על בעל אבדה למהדר לה משום דקה מהנה לה. But if the vow went in the other direction, that the finder may not give benefit to the owner, then that case would be prohibited because he's returning his item. This whole time we were assuming that returning an item is simply a mitzvah. It already belongs to the owner, so it's no benefit to the owner. But in this version, we're changing that logic and we're saying if the finder may not give benefit to the owner, then he can't return his item. Even though he's already returning what's his, still, that is a benefit because he lost it, and now you're helping me find it, so that is a great benefit. And therefore, it would be prohibited to return the item to him. And so the Mishnah is not talking about that case. Okay, all that is, let's say, to be ameh, and the other to be aseh, or the other way around, says, v'chad amar, afilu nichse machazir asurim al ba'al aveda. Even if it's a case, even if the vow goes the other way, and the property of the finder, the returner, is prohibited to the owner, it's still permitted to return it. Because when the finder is returning, he's simply returning something that is already the owner's, and the finder is doing a mitzvah, so there's no problem. And there'll be also no problem if both made a vow against each other and neither can give or receive. That would be permitted according to this opinion. All right, now we're going to try to challenge the first opinion. Tanan, makom shenotlin aleha sachar tipol hana'a lehekdesh. Our Mishnah taught that if you're in a place where normally the owner gives compensation to the finder, then he can't pay it, he has to give it to hekdesh. We understand according to the second opinion that the vow can go this way or that way, or even both. Well, in that case, the owner cannot give it to the finder because, let's say it's both ways. So the finder cannot get any benefit, so he can't take the $10. The owner also, so he says no. The owner also can't keep it because then the owner is benefiting by keeping the $10 that really he has to give. That's why he has to give it to hekdesh. So that makes sense. But according to the first opinion, Ela laman damar b'shenichse machazir asurim v'la mehadar v'hechi metares makom kashya. This will leave with a question. According to this opinion, that the Mishnah is only talking about a case where the owner may not give benefit to the finder. In that case, the owner cannot give benefit to the finder, so that's why the owner will not be able to give the money to the finder. So the finder has to refuse it. But the owner should be able to keep it, right, himself, because the owner can benefit from the finder. So why does he have to give it to hekdesh? All he has to do is keep the money, and we have no answer to this. And so this would be a challenge to that, to the opinion that distinguishes between permitted and prohibited, and only works for the opinion that says it goes both ways. And that's it. That's the end of that discussion of that section of the Mishnah. Okay, now we're going to go to a new topic. The following statement of Rava is not relevant to anything that we just said, but it's going to be relevant for the next discussion. So let's see. We have Amar Rava. Hayta lefanav kikar shel hefker. V'amar kikar zo hekdesh. A guy's walking in the street, he sees a loaf of bread in the middle of the street that's ownerless. Whoever just left it there and it's ownerless. So really he could take it for himself. But instead, he sees it and he declares this loaf will be hekdesh. Okay, so now the loaf is hekdesh, and that's permitted even though it doesn't actually belong to him at that time, but he's near it, so he could take it. Instead, he makes it hekdesh. Fine. Now, netala le'ochla. ma'a lefi kula. Lehorisha lebanav ma'a lefi tobat hana'ah sheba. If after it makes it hekdesh, then he goes and violates hekdesh. Now, anytime you use something that belongs, that you made hekdesh, that is consecrated, that is a prohibition of me'ilah. Now, it depends what he has in mind. When he now takes this, a loaf, and he's taking it for himself, if he's taking it for himself to eat the whole thing, then his me'ilah applies to the entire value of the item that he took, because he's planning to eat the whole thing. But if he has in mind, L'hodisha lebanav, is I'm going to take this, he just made ekdesh. Then he says, I'm going to take it, maybe changes his mind, but you can't change your mind once you make it ekdesh. He says, takes it and says, I'm going to give it to my children. I'm going to leave it for them in my inheritance. In that case, since he is not benefiting directly from it, he's only because he's giving it away to his kids, so in that case, the me'ilah amount is only the benefit that he would give for giving this gift to his kids, right? When he says in the will, hey, and you got this loaf of bread, his kids are going to have a certain amount of gratitude, saying, oh, thank you so much for leaving us this piece of bread in your will. So that level of gratitude is worth $10. So then the me'ilah would only be that for $10 and not for the entire amount of the loaf, which maybe is $20. Okay, that is the statement of Rava. Now, ba'amine Rav Chaya bar Rabin merava, ki kari alecha untana lo bematana mahu. The question is, if someone says, my loaf, he has a loaf in his hands, it says, my loaf of bread is prohibited to you. It's going to be konam, it's like a korban to you. But then I proceed to take my loaf and I give it to you as a gift, in which case it's no longer my loaf, now it's your loaf. Does the vow still apply? Here's the two sides. Ki kari amar lo, ki ite birshute hu de asur, o dilma alecha amar le, ilave shivite hekdesh. Do we say on the one hand that I said my loaf is prohibited to you, and now that's only if it's in my possession, but now I gave you the loaf, so now it's in your possession, so only when it's in my possession is prohibited, and now if I gave it to you, it's in your possession, now it's permitted. Or do we say, alecha amar le, what I meant to say is, my loaf, this loaf, is prohibited to you. It's prohibited to you no matter what. And therefore, I made it like hekdesh. Just like if I make something hekdesh, it doesn't matter whose it is. Actually, it goes to the proper, it's consecrated. It's prohibited to everyone, all the time. So it's equivalent to saying, this loaf is prohibited. It doesn't matter who owns it. And so even though I said my loaf, because right now it's mine, but what I meant to say is that this loaf is prohibited no matter where it goes, then even if I give it to you as a gift, in that case, it would still be prohibited. So that's the question. What does this language mean if I give it as a gift? The same would be if I sell it to you. The point is, it's no longer mine. Does the vow still apply or not? Amar le peshita da'af agav dehavale b'matana asur. Rava responds, it's simple to me that when I say kikari alecha, my loaf is prohibited to you, then that is going to include also, if I give it to you as a gift, it's still prohibited. Right? That's what I mean. I mean that my loaf is prohibited to you no matter what. And what's Rava's proof that that's obviously what the person means? What do you think that what I mean when I say my loaf is prohibited to you? Right? How would my loaf get to you in the first place? Right? If I said my loaf is prohibited to you, so how would you have access to it? You think it's talking about a case where you steal it? Right? And that's what I have in mind. My loaf is prohibited to you, so that if you should come and steal it, then I want it to be prohibited. Nobody would say such a thing, right? Obviously, that's even worse. And so, no, rather, when I say kikari alecha, how is my loaf getting into your possession? It means a case where I give it to you as a gift, or I sell it to you. So that when I say kikari alecha, I mean it's prohibited while it's in my possession. If you steal it, certainly that would be prohibited, but I don't need to say such a case. I'm talking about a case where even if I give it to you, it's still prohibited. That's Rava's proof. All right, pretty good proof. But Rav Chaya bar Rabin says, I'm not sure about that. Amar le la lapuke di'i az b'nei Allah. It could very well be talking about a case where I invite you over to my home to eat the loaf with me, right? If I'm a host, I invite a guest, and he's eating my food, it's still my food, even if I put it on his plate, and he puts it in his mouth, it still belongs to me. So that's the case that I meant when I said kikari alecha. I want to prohibit you from ever coming over and eating with me my food in my house. But if I give it to you, I change my mind, I give it to you as a gift, then it's no longer my loaf, and then it may very well be permitted. So Rav Chaya bar Avin tells Rava, I don't think the language is so clear. It could be talking about a host, and it's not necessarily talking about a gift. Maybe the gift would actually be permitted. Okay, so he leaves it as a question. Now, itibe, we're going to challenge Rava. Rava said like it was so simple that kikari alecha means all the time, even if I give it to you as a gift, it's prohibited. But here's an objection. Amar lo hash'ileni paratecha. Amar lo kunam para she'ani kanui lecha. Nechasai alecha im yesh li para elazo. You have some neighbors that are not very nice to each other. And one of them comes and says, lend me your cow. And the other doesn't simply say no. He says, every cow that I purchased is prohibited to you. So basically saying every cow that I have, maybe he has one, except for this one, but he's using it. So I need this one here that's right there. Maybe he has a cow in the yard. The other one sees the cow. Can I borrow the cow? This one I need. And every other cow that I purchased is korban to you, is prohibited. Or if that neighbor says instead, nechasai alecha, all my property will be forbidden to you if I have a cow besides this. So he's basically saying, I don't have a cow besides this, because presumably he doesn't want to make everything he has prohibited forever. So it's his way of saying, I don't have any, and trying to be convincing that in fact he doesn't have any. And so, kind of don't feel bad. I'm saying no, but it's because I don't have any other one. And he's making a vow with consequences otherwise. Okay, that's case one. Or, similar case with not a cow but a spade. Hashileni kardumcha. One neighbor says, can I borrow your spade? He sees he has a spade. Amalukonam kordom sheeshli shani kanui. And the other one answers, no, every spade that I've purchased is prohibited to you. So the answer is no. All right, they're all prohibited. Or he says, nechasai alai im yeshli kadom elazeh. Or if he says, all my property will be prohibited to you if I have another spade besides this one. This one here I need, and I have no other. Okay, that's case one or two. Now, if in either of these, v'nimsa sheyeshla, turns out he does have another cow, or he does have another spade, now his vow will kick in, and all of his, let's say it's the second formula, where he said, all of my property is prohibited to you if I do have another one in my possession. In that case, bechayav asur, during his whole lifetime, all of his possessions will be prohibited to his neighbor, because that was his vow. But met, if that neighbor died, and so now the vow will go away, and then the neighbor who was asking for the item then can borrow something from the inheritors. Or shinitana lo b'matana hareze mutar. Or the neighbor who first refused gives a cow or a spade to the other neighbor as a gift. That is permitted. How could that be permitted? It sounds like he said, any cow in my possession is prohibited to you, right? That I purchased or that's in my possession is prohibited to you. But if I give it to you as a gift, then it's no longer in my possession, and therefore it's permitted. What do we see from here? That this is a parallel case to the one that we were asking about before. And Rava, for some reason, assumed that kikari alecha means no matter what, even if I give it to you as a gift, it's still prohibited. But here we have very similar language. Any cow in my possession is prohibited, but as long as I give it to you, then it's permitted. So this seems to be a challenge against Rava. But we can have an answer. Amar Rav Acha bar bered Rav Ika shenitena lo al yedei acher. No, the only reason why it's permitted in this case that we challenged from is because the neighbor who owns the cows, he didn't give it directly to his neighbor, but rather he gave it first to a third party. And that third party gave it to the neighbor who did the requesting. And that's why it's permitted. Because it's no longer in my possession, I gave it away to someone else. So as soon as I give it away to someone else, it's not in my possession. then it would be prohibited to that neighbor. That's why. But if I gave it directly to him, then no. When I said this, all my property is prohibited to you. Any spade I have is prohibited to you. I mean, it's prohibited to you even if I give it to you. Of course, I don't want you to have it. So he wouldn't mean if I give it to you directly, it's still prohibited, and that's what Rava was talking about in the previous case where he gives him the loaf directly. But in this case here, if he gives it to a third party and then the third party gives it over to him, that's why it's permitted. So there's a difference between the two cases, and Rava can save himself that way. And another proof for this answer, and in fact we can infer that this is in fact the case, that he gave it to a third party. You see here it says that if he died or it was given to him in a passive, that means not that the neighbor who had the spade gave it to him directly, but rather it was given to the neighbor who was requesting. You notice, by the way, that the words nitena and netana and netana are spelled the same. Here it's with a yud, here it's without a yud, but over here nitena is spelled without a yud. So the spelling, you can't really tell which one it is. But remember, this was all oral, and so when you're teaching this orally, you can definitely hear a difference between nitena and netana. So since it does say nitena, that means it was given to a third party, and so we're not just backing up into this answer. It seems clear that is in fact the simple reading of this source, and therefore we saved Rava. So Rava would maintain that indeed, if I said kikari alecha and then I gave it to you as a gift, it would still be prohibited. All right, fascinating discussion. Baruch Adonai Le'olam. Amen v'amen.